Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. Coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined in the studio this week by my good friends Paul Krieger,
Hey, everybody.
Derek DeBoer,
Hey now.
Mr. Corey Fiasconaro.
Welcome home.
And just a reminder, this show, along with all of our DVC content, is brought to you by the world of DVC. That includes DVCResaleMarket.com, where Derek works, where you can save a lot of money buying a DVC contract versus buying it directly from Disney. DVCRentalStore.com, where you can rent points if you're not ready to buy and you want to see what that experience is like. That's a great place to go and do that. And of course, MoneraFinancial.com, where you can finance your DVC purchase. So please show your support for us. If you like our content, support our sponsors, because that's how we do these shows. So this week, we want to talk about the most recent information we have on what contracts Disney is buying back. They have been on a buying spree recently. And some interesting trends, Paul, in this report.
It's been sort of a crazy 2021, I think, coming off of what 2020 was in terms of, the ROFR report and all that kind of stuff. So on the year, we're looking at numbers that are based off of sales from December of 2021. So on the year, Disney, based off the numbers we have at DVC Resale Market, bought back 300 more contracts than they did the year prior, which is an 111% increase from 2020. So obviously we know.
So you're saying overall for the year of 2021.
Overall for the year, yeah. So
okay, and I just want to make sure for people who are new, kind of explain a little bit about what we're talking about. When someone wants to sell their DVC contract, Disney has the right of first refusal, meaning that before that sale can go through, Disney has the right to say, no, actually, we want that. Or, no, it's okay, go ahead and sell it. If Disney says they want it, they're going to pay whatever the price was agreed upon between the buyer and the seller. And I know this intimately because a few of my contracts have been bought back.
Too soon.
Yeah, really. So this is what when we're talking about the right of first refusal report, the buyback report, that's what we're talking about. These are contracts that Disney has bought back, and this is part of how also we read tea leaves to some degree as what Disney is doing next, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so overall, Disney's been very aggressive in 2021 with its, I feel like with its buyback trends. We're seeing numbers that are coming close to what we saw in 2019 in terms of the number of contracts that they're buying back. But still not quite there yet, but I think, they're continuing to be aggressive. And what their logic is behind a lot of their buybacks, like your guess is as good as mine. We'll make some predictions and stuff like that, but I feel like there's this algorithm in the back of like their processes, and they punch in some numbers, and randomly it says buy this contract.
I think you're giving them too much credit.
Just flip a coin. Okay, we'll take that one.
I've always said it'd be the best reality show of all time. Just put a camera in that ROFR room, and people would watch that, like, because it really is. It's just this. People have said, well, if I do this contract or if I do this resort, or why did this one go through and this one didn't go through? It's a fascinating process. And again, the tea leaves are what we have, which are just cold, hard stats.
You see, I've mentioned this a few times, that this promotion they just did that ended in December for buying direct points was the best promotion they've done maybe ever. My guide, who I was talking to, said he'd been there for 20 plus years and he'd never seen one like this. They were very, very aggressive with the promotion. And I was just saying to these guys before we started recording, I think they're getting ready to do something similar, another one, because they're buying back all these. They're buying back all these points. Now in 2020, it's I would like to see the comparison to 2019 because 2020 was an outlier.
Yep.
They weren't buying anything back
Right.
in 2020.
Months. We went months
With no
nothing
buybacks.
bought back.
You could buy any contract you wanted. They didn't buy anything back. But now it seems like they're making up for lost time.
For sure, yeah. So in terms of percentage, and again, we're just looking at the number of contracts that DVC resale market sold. But in 2019, 16.3% of all contracts got bought back by Disney. In 2020, that dropped to 7.4%. So just a huge cut there. And then 2021, on the year, we jumped back up to 13% in the number of buybacks. So that's, in the past 6 years, I believe that's probably like the second highest on record of the percentage of buybacks that we've seen. So
And also, just to explain to folks who may not be aware, when Disney buys these back, then they're free to sell them as direct points. So when Derek sells them, they're resale points. When Disney sells them, they're direct points. And of course, direct points go for a much, much higher premium. That's why companies like DVC Resale Market exist, because pay a lot less for those points. But when you go and do a tour at Disney and you sit with a sales rep, the points they're trying to sell you are these points, in many cases, that they bought back, because they're not allowed to just like issue new points. Once a resort is sold out, once all its points are declared and sold, that's it. That's all the points that exist. So they have to wait for these contracts to sell, buy them back. Like Polynesian, you can't buy Polynesian sold out ages ago. But if somebody's selling a Polynesian contract on the resale market and Disney buys it back, they can now sell that. That they're allowed to do. So obviously they are, and Disney is kind of banking on the fact, let's be honest, that people going to them directly aren't even aware there's a resale market.
Correct.
They have no idea. And we hear it all the time from people that, when I bought, I had no idea resale existed, and now I could kick myself because I could have saved X number of dollars.
Right.
I just go back to my Riviera contract.
Well, that's what people do is, you're there, you're at Walt Disney World or maybe on a cruise line, and you learn about the club that you've heard about so often, and you meet with a great vacation club guide, and they sit and it sounds amazing, but people want to do research, so when they start doing research and look up Disney Vacation Club and then resale pops up and they go, oh, what's that? Because at the end of the day, Disney's cheap, right? So when they buy these contracts back, they're not just buying them back because they want to sell them and, we're going to raise the price by $2 or $3 per point. Some of these contracts are being bought back that they might literally double the price, right? So if they're going to buy back a contract at X resort, they will turn around, flip it, and sell it for so much. So that's why it's always interesting to see that it's always very specific and very resort specific on what contracts Disney buys back.
So looking at December of 2021, what contracts got bought back the most?
So I thought one of the interesting anomalies that came out of December was a focus on 2042 resorts. So 54% of the contracts that were bought back in December of 2021 were resorts that expire in 2042. And of those, Boardwalk came away the winner with 9 contracts bought back. Old Key West, Beach Club, Boulder Ridge coming in shortly behind that. The only correlation there in my mind is, Boardwalk, this promotion that they just ran. It was interesting. I think we talked about it a little bit before. They just randomly threw Boardwalk into sort of their current sales promotion, which is something they normally do. Like normally it's just the current selling resorts that they're talking about. It's Alani and Riviera. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, we'll sell you Boardwalk too. And it's also incentivized. And it's like, but it's sold out. but it's never really sold out. Like they've always got some points in the back pocket, and they'll sell them to you for quite a hefty price.
Let me talk to my manager. Let me see what I can do.
Very quick conversation later. We've got exactly what you
remember
want.
that when they buy a 2042 contract, when they turn around and sell it, it's no longer a 2042 contract. It's a 20.
For old Key West, it is. Right.
Yeah.
So when they buy back the old Key West contracts, like if we sell one that expires in 2042, Disney will buy it back. They'll flip it, and all of a sudden, it's got 15 more magical years left on it. So it's 2057 contracts. So the Boardwalk and the Beach Club and stuff, those are still
2042. Yeah.
42. Yeah.
But the price that they're selling at is just amazing. And we've learned some, and in terms of like reading the tea leaves a little bit, we've learned some stuff since this report was written that sort of maybe correlates to that a little bit. So the other thing that was interesting about 2042 resorts in the December report is how much more they were willing to spend. So that's the other factor of, right of first refusal is how much is Disney willing to spend to buy back that contract? And specifically for Boardwalk and Beach Club, those numbers both increased by $7 per point. So the highest contract that Disney bought back for Boardwalk in December was at $140 per point.
Wow.
Beach Club, $162 per point. Now, to give some comparison for those, at the beginning of the year, they were buying those back somewhere around $120 for Boardwalk, and for Beach Club, really they haven't touched Beach Club most of the year. So something's going on with 2042 resorts. Now, last week we learned that the actual direct sales price, the sold-out direct sales price for those resorts, for Boardwalk and Beach Club, is increasing here later this week. So maybe that's a correlation. I don't know. Again, it's
stop and
trying
think about it. It's 2022. We are 20 years away from the expiration. It might be a good time to roll out an extension. Because those are going to be really hard to sell.
Yeah.
With 20 years left on them. They're going to be hard to sell.
It's just one of those things too where people come to us all the time and they're like, I love the Beach Club, I love the Boardwalk, but I'm grappling with this, 2042. But the people that love those resorts, they don't care about 2042. They know that they're not the easiest resorts to get into, so they see their value in, I'm going to be able to book the Beach Club or the Boardwalk 11 months out. I know it. I'm not going to have that sadness at 7 months out that, I can't get what I really want. So fans of those resorts, honestly, they don't care about 2042. They would rather have 20 years of the best vacations knowing exactly the resort that they're staying in, their favorite one, versus rolling the dice at 7 months out. So, yeah, people ask us all the time about what's going to happen in 2042. And I'm like, Disney ain't going to say anything, I can tell you. Because Old Key West was such a debacle when they did it, when they offered that extension years ago, that I do not see them making any sort of announcement anytime soon.
You don't think they're going to extend those resorts?
I
don't see any way they can. I don't see any way they can. I think they have to.
Yeah.
I go back to them cleaning. I think it just goes back to them trying to clean up the mess from Old Key West.
Yes.
That is why. So Old Key West on the year last year had a 35% buyback rate.
Wow.
So 1 in 3 contracts are being bought back. I'm sure you have a lot of happy Old Key West customers.
I literally was just going to say I had this fabulous family that tried 6 times to get an Old Key West contract.
And they bought
6
back
times.
each one.
They bought back each one. And finally they got one
Yeah.
that made it. It was the best phone call I've ever made.
And
I was
the
like,
reason...
You made it. You did it. You got one.
And so the reason for that, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, when they offered the extension on Old Key West, it was essentially, you can extend for X number of years for this price. And if you do that, we'll sort of up your deed, we'll put a deed forth and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that they did was they sent basically this document to all the owners that chose not to increase that basically said, you've got to sign off on this saying that you're going to give us your points back come 2042. Now, you can jump on Disboards. I'm not going to go into the legality of things, but there's this general understanding that what they did with Old Key West actually resulted in the entire resort being extended, whether you paid for the extension or not. So, like, there's going to be, like, there's some legal issues there. So based off of the fact that they did not everyone actually bought the extension.
Correct.
Now they're just like, we've got to clean up this mess. So any 2042 contract that they see, we're taking it, we're flipping it.
And it was an amazing deal. Like at the time, I think it was maybe $15 a point, maybe $20 a point. But the issue was people didn't want to pay for something that was, going to be 30 years down the road, right? So people go, okay, I could give you $6,000 now, or for something that's going to take effect in 2042, or I could spend $6,000 and just buy more points that I could use like right now. So it was a big mess because we had to call people, all the owners. So just like Paul said, if you didn't want the extension, you had to sign something saying, we offered it to you, you said no. So we spent so much time either getting people to try to extend it or having them say, I didn't want to do it.
People didn't sign.
That's interesting because I know there's got to be a lot of them out there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can't,
thousands.
You can't make someone sign a document like that.
And I think that's where the legal issue is that I think that
they don't want to touch that like at all.
Yeah.
Anytime soon.
See, I just wonder if they haven't figured it out. If they haven't figured out the solution to their issue and they're doing a mass buyback because they're going to extend.
Right.
Lawyers are smart and they can figure out ways to get things done.
Yeah.
And Disney has some of the best lawyers you're going to find anywhere. So I wouldn't put anything past them. I've always felt there's no scenario where they don't extend these.
I mean, especially Boardwalk and Beach Club. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the best probably location, I think, of probably any DVC resorts. And that's why they're so popular, is because if you're a DVC member and maybe you bought a different resort, but at 7 months out, you realize, oh, God, it's kind of hard to get the Beach Club or kind of hard to get the Boardwalk. So that's when they add on points
it's
to
not
be able
like,
to get in there.
It's not like they're going to bulldoze the Boardwalk in 2042.
Right.
Okay? The resort's not going away. And do they really think that all the people who still have their contracts in 2042, their contracts revert back to Disney, does Disney think these people are going to buy those contracts again? I don't think that's what's going to happen.
I think I've said a couple times that, I wonder if they take all the 2042 owners at all the 2042 resorts and say, we're going to give you a 15-year extension for X price. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's for your specific resort. Somehow they're going to have to, that's going to be its own deeded 15-year, I don't even know what it could be. Like, some legal person's going to tear me apart on this. But then, essentially, they can shut one resort down at a time, fully refurbish it, and then flip it and resell it. Meanwhile, you've made money by extending contracts. You've made all these 2042 owners happy to a certain degree, while you sort of gradually take one resort offline at a time. Because that's the problem that I can't get past, is that if you shutter all these DVC properties 2042, that's a whole lot of resorts that you shut down at once. And that's a whole lot of revenue that you've lost. Now, yeah, they could flip it for cash, but do you think that they would actually fully book out all of those rooms for cash, at all of those resorts? I have trouble with that.
Not at the prices they charge now.
Yeah.
Not at the prices they charge now.
So imagine the prices in 2041.
Yeah, really. Really.
So like a sign of things to come. I think they're continuing to be aggressive here into January a little bit. I think I've seen about 20 or so come through already in terms of ROFRs. Yeah. So they're continuing their trends. I've not really looked at any of the data on what they've done so far in 2022, but someone's got some sort of scheme somewhere. And
again, they're not buying back everything. I mean, one of the best parts of my job is when I get to post and, let people know. Like last week, I think we had over 200 people that, passed ROFR, right? So there's a lot of families that get their DVC membership. So sometimes especially if you're that family that, got bought back 5 times, they're like, they're buying back everything. They're not. It's always very resort specific on, what they're buying back. So again, that's why we publish a report that we do every single month, so you can go in and see, again, tea leaves, right? So okay, I want to get the best deal that I possibly can. We'll advise you and say, listen, this might be a great deal, but just so you know, they may buy it back. It might have a giant red flag on it per se, because these are the statistical things of what they've been buying back lately. And especially for those old Key West owners, it's always,
and that's
a rough one.
It's pretty spot on when you look at, the statistics and, what the average price they're buying back at and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can almost know when the contract goes in. Like, that's like, I'm probably going to take that. Yeah. I'd place money that they're going to take that.
Yeah.
$15 under the average price that they're taking it for or something like that. It's like,
Do you think they're trying to drive up the price of resale?
No.
Well, when they're doing promotions like they just did, where depending on how many points you buy, those Alani points direct were going for roughly after the incentives, we're going for about the same price as resale. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it was a great promotion, and again, it's.
And I thought to myself, what does that look like? Are they trying to compete on price with resale? And is that why they're buying back all these contracts? What are they going for here?
When they buy back contracts, what Disney, as a Disney Vacation Club guide, what you always want to have is you're going to go in there and meet with a family, and you're going to want to push whatever the current resort is, right? So that's always going to be, right now, Riviera. So the numbers they're going to show you, they're going to talk to you about Riviera, and this is what it is, $200+ a point. You always have to have what we call just kind of like a drop-down product, right? So when that family says, oh, I really can't afford the, $200 plus a point, and then they might say, you know what, we actually have Saratoga Springs, for example, right? So Saratoga, I think Disney sells it directly for $180 per point, right? So it's a little bit of a difference versus buying direct Riviera, but for us, we sell Saratoga for like $135, $136. A Vacation Club guide always has to have a drop-down product, just because you don't want that family to leave. You want them to join the club.
Do they need this many drop-down products?
They have a lot of drop-down products, it seems lately.
That's my thing, is that Disney, like when I looked at that promotion, I've been working with Disney for 25 years. I know one thing. They don't discount anything unless they absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And the bigger the discount, the larger the shotgun at their temple is to do it. That, you could count on that. Death and taxes and Disney not giving a discount unless they absolutely have to. Those are 3 things you can always rely on. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, what's going on? That's not normal. And that's why I asked my guide. I'm like, have they ever done this before? He's like, I've been here 20 some odd years. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. And then they're doing all these buybacks. There's a connection here, folks. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a connection between the way they're buying back right now, the way they're buying back 2042 resorts, and this promotion that just ended in December. And I'll figure it out. I'll probably figure it out once it's obvious. But they're connected. There's something about that that's symbiotic.
The thing that I keep going back to is I've had some of the similar thoughts, but the third element of this is benefits. And as long as Disney basically suppresses the direct benefits that you're getting for buying Disney Vacation Club, no matter how close they bring those 2 point numbers, like, it's still going to be cheaper to buy resale. And we've seen no indication that they're going to be bringing back any benefits anytime soon. Terry Schultz, near, I think it was like the third quarter of last year, in the fall of last year, she made some comment about, Moonlight Magic coming back in 2022, like how they were working towards it. Well, now, fast forward to January 2022, and Bill Dirksen did a interview in the Disney Files magazine that we were talking about earlier, and no mention, absolutely, like almost goes out of his way to not mention Moonlight Magic. So no matter what you do to try to make it competitive with resale's still cheaper unless you start bringing some of those benefits back.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where research is just so important that we tell people all the time, because people go, oh, do I get that little member card for the discounts and blah, blah, blah. We always stress time and time again, do not buy Disney Vacation Club for anything other than Disney Vacation Club. Right?
Don't buy it for perks or discounts.
Don't buy it for 10% off of Wetzel's Pretzels. Don't do it. Buy the resort you need, which is what we always stress to people, because Disney wants you to buy whatever their new big resort is. But when you take time to do research, you realize and go, oh, you know what? I do love the beach club, or I love the boardwalk, or I need that home resort priority for that reason, right? So that's where don't buy it for any little perks or any little discounts, because
even if you do, you won't have your birth certificate with you when you try to cash in your discount. So we were at Epcot last night, and first off, to get into the member lounge now, they are requiring this new digital membership card, and literally there was a line of people trying to figure out how to download this new digital membership card. Now, I thought that was hilarious in itself. But then we went to dinner in Epcot, and the check comes, like, oh, do you have DVC? Or yeah, and we were like, what do you need to see? And they go, well, we prefer the physical card. And it's like, well, that's funny, because everyone else is telling us to download this digital card. And so I threw my physical card away. Well, the other couple that we were there with, they still had their physical card, and hands it to the server. And the server goes, oh, this is expired. Well, yes, all the blue cards expired December 31st of 2021. No one has an active. So it's like, no one knows what you need to get benefits anymore. So that it makes it even more complicated.
It's not clear.
No.
Yeah. Well, we're going to find out, right? We're going to find out more as time goes on. We'll find out if I'm right, if there's a connection between that incentive that ended in December and these crazy buybacks.
in 2040, we're going to go, God, Pete was so smart.
I know. I know. Either 2040 or June. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week with another edition of the DVC Show. Have a great week.